Well, now to our special focus on the southern view this evening. 4 days after torrential rains left Chennai city battered, some areas, about 10% of the city really, are still struggling with waterlogging and inundation. Many other areas where water was cleared only as early as this morning finally got electricity supply restored. It was cut off on Sunday and has been restored in about 85% of the city. It was another harrowing and devastating flood which left over 20 people dead and thousands of homes and entire localities drowned or destroyed in Chennai. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh visited the city to take stock of the situation today, and the Tamil Nadu government has sought an urgent relief of over 5,000 crores, 5,060 crores to be precise, from the central government. The Prime Minister has cleared a 561 crore flood mitigation package for flood management in Chennai. Frantic cases were reported in several parts of the city, with patients in hospitals having to be moved out even in garbage trucks. That's how desperate it got. There is no end to the deluge of dramatic videos and pictures, as you see on your screens, that tell the desperate state of affairs in the city. Extensive damage to roads, bridges, and lakhs of people have lost their livelihoods in the floods brought by Cyclone Michaung. Remember, this is not the first flood the city has seen, and unfortunately may not be the last. 2015, 2021, all years watermarked in history. But just why is it that the city drowns? Most importantly, a 4,000 crore stormwater drain network was being built around the city. Has it had any impact? Several tough and difficult questions raised, and that's our special focus this evening. We'll answer those with a special panel of residents from the city's worst affected areas and experts from the city. But first, the Greater Chennai Corporation Commissioner J. Radhakrishnan, who has been on the ground visiting every part of the city, fighting the floodwaters, joins us on the show this evening. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a very difficult time for you and your team, and I appreciate you taking the time out to join and speak to us. There are lots of questions, as I pointed out, over the situation in Chennai and why the inundation was so severe and the action taken by the administration. But first, give us a quick situation update. Has waterlogging cleared in all areas of the city, or are there areas which are still struggling?
I should be very frank to you that, almost 80 to 85% of the areas which were inundated during that, very heavy rainfall consequent to the cyclone being stationary for a very long period close to Chennai. But we do have pockets of problem. I'm sure you or your colleagues would have also seen in the media. The situation was when this 36-hour sort of rainfall took place, all the 426 square kilometer we had the inundation, and all the 35,000 odd numbers of road, 6,000 kilometers rate, you would have seen inundation. Now the situation is 85% of the roads are cleared, the water has gone in. Reasons I'll come to later. But the pockets where we are having problem are Pallikarnai and Velacheri in the south, and of course Semanjeri, parts of Semanjeri. Then of course even in the north we have places like Manali, where excess water from Pudal and Pundi was discharged.
So, as you mentioned that and give us that status update, why was it so severe this time? There are serious questions that have been raised. There is, as you know, a massive stormwater drain project worth over 4,000 crores being spent on it that's underway in the city. But still, there is inundation. Do we then assess that that project has failed? What really explains the repeated inundation? Who's to be held responsible?
What happens is, one, we cannot compare disasters. Each looks a little bit unique. Like, we can have a model classification of flood, cyclone, drought and all. In this particular case, the unique thing is Chennai is just next to the sea, and only there are four ways. One in the north called as Ennur Creek, where Kosatale drains. Then in the center we have Adayar and Kuvam, and in the south we have Kovalan Basin, where Buckingham Canal drains. Only these four outlets are there to the sea. And in this particular cyclone, what phenomenon we saw is 100 to 150 kilometers, it was stationary, and very heavy downpour was happening, and the sea was so rough that the water was literally not taking, and these four main waterways whether it is Adayar, Kuvam, Kostalayar or Buckingham Canal, were flowing higher and not taking water. Sea was not at all taking water. So the 33 micro canals, 14 other canals, plus the waterways, 3 other waterways in the city, just sort of having overwashes. So that is why the inundation was more or less uniform. Even in front of LIC, there was a thing everywhere. It started, the overwashes started. And finally, of course, the Narayanapuram area, just slightly outer to Chennai, in the near the Pallikarna area, that which catches all the water. Again, this goes back to Kovalam Basin. So that was the technical reason. We will wait for experts to work, but honestly, on ground, that's what I was saying. Now that the water is rapidly, the sea is allowing the water to flow in, within 12 to almost 24 hours, the 80 or 85% of the area got cleared. Now, balance is that the water has gone out. It has spilled over to those areas. In that areas, we do have a challenge.
So point taken on those, but areas like Madipakam, Velacheri and the OMR road have become notorious for flooding every time, not even when there is so much rain, even when there is lesser rain. Every time there is rain, there are floods there. I'm not blaming this administration or that, but has there not been a systemic failure in these areas?
I'll personally say that, I will say that these are areas which are, a place to Pallikarna marsh. Second is Madipakam. Even the year 2000, when I was the commissioner of the same place, that used to be the border. So they are all very, very low lying. If you go to Perumbakam, which is just Global Hospital and certain other place, they're literally 2 feet below the road level, and it's just like a watershed. Even traditional places like Chennai, Chengalpet is known for lakes. Okay, it's like Chennai has no other way. All this, Nungambakam used to be an area. These are all historic things. It's not recently. People normally say that, encroachment in waterways. Now that has stopped. Supreme High Court monitors very clearly. We removed encroachment. But like a watershed, when there is a deluge, it ultimately joins into these areas. Lakeview Road. Lakeview Road obviously will be in front of a lake. There now there is a thing. Velacheri lake, which was such a vast thing. Now at this stage, there's no point in doing a postmortem as why they allowed that time. When you talk to people, they say, no, somebody has given a plan approval. They're all, patta lands. They are not illegal lands. So now we are doing reverse engineering, and to an extent, 20 to 24 centimeter rain. These stormwater drains are capable of capturing and putting onto this. But once it goes, the second, it goes beyond, it becomes a challenge. Second challenge which we have been seeing of late is extreme weather events. 2 was 2. If this same 24 or 48 centimeter rain is spread over 3 or 4 days, it would have not have mattered. This entire almost 45 centimeters of rain, normally if you have 6-8 around X centimeters rain in northeast monsoon, almost 50 centimeter rain happened in these 3 days. This is happening not just in Chennai, in many other places. So I think we need to manage that aspect as we look. So that's why I personally am feeling more non-structural kind of things, allowing retention ponds, allowing more retention structures, linking up the lakes in upstream, particularly via the downstream. This thing, even Andhra's surplus via coastal layer comes to Chennai. These are the issues.
I really wish we can sort all that out, sir. But I just want one last question to you, and very briefly, if there is one wish that you have, something you believe that can be done to improve the city and make it flood resistant, not flood proof, flood resistant, what would that be? Quickly.
See, one, we all need to work together. We need to have more openings in the sea, get appropriate CRZ approvals. It should not be that, everything goes through ultimately these 4 roads. It's like, 4 major roads where 10 roads were joining. Now there are almost 150 roads joining. That is one. Then every area we need to have unique solutions. We have been working with RWS, developing retention ponds in those areas so that they can hold on to some amount of water. Now, Velacheri and all the places which you mentioned are suffering the surplus of another area. all the water coming through. So urban flooding is a unique phenomenon. We cannot say it's just a natural disaster. A lot of gated communities have come in. So we need to work with builders. We need to tell everybody that, we all need to work together to address this. A lot of guidelines. Lot of improvement is there. Otherwise, you wouldn't have, 2015 also I was working in the field. It took almost 10 to 15 days to bring about a semblance of normality. Now, at least 75 to 85% of areas were brought back electricity and all. Balance 15. And I'm very, very honest about it. Where we have not been able to relieve, those people definitely have their grievances, and we need to respect that and not treat disaster statistics and give figures. So as commissioner, we are duty bound to ensure that along with other departments, we rapidly give them relief and relieve them of this water stagnation. That we are at it, and we'll ensure that, future further improvements do take place.
Well, relief and rescue right now, but of course it will take a long time for people to get their lives back on track. Remember, several people, fishermen, farmers, the poor, several have lost their livelihoods, homes completely devastated, inundated. We'll keep a close track of that. That was Commissioner of the Greater Chennai Corporation, J. Radhakrishnan. But what can be done to improve the city? Or is floods going to be a perennial reality for us in cities like Chennai? It may not just be restricted to Chennai. It's perhaps the reality of urban India, in fact, urban pockets around the world. But being a coastal city, Chennai is particularly vulnerable to that kind of intense flooding as we've seen now. Remember 2015, 2021. And now joining me this evening in that conversation, my colleague Sam Daniel, who's been tracking every event in that city. He's reported on the past floods as well as this one from neck, hip and now knee-deep water there. We see vehicles going past behind you, Sam Daniel. I believe that road has now cleared up. You have seen three different floods. You've seen the 2015 floods, the 2021, now this. What's the sense you get? Was this administration in action? How do you assess what happened? And what's the situation update?
One major difference this time, Veeru Raghav, is the absence of both officials from be it the Chennai Corporation or the Tamil Nadu government on the ground, particularly on day one. It's later after day two, we could see some activity on the ground, but even on day 3 and 4, we couldn't see that kind of a presence we saw during earlier floods or cyclones in Chennai. That's a major difference. The public understand this time the quantum of rainfall received in Chennai is not comparable to what was received in 2015 or later, but they are shocked, angry by the conspicuous absence of the political class as well as the officials on the ground. Only on day 3 there was a semblance of some kind of relief reaching out to marooned communities. Today we could see, from last evening, people could see teams coming in with bread packets, milk packets and water, and today that has improved, and the government has also activated non-government organizations and volunteers to join hands, and this could improve, but this is too late. So what the people expected is on day 1, boats coming in, they know there's going to be extremely heavy rainfall. If the government had kept ready boats to be deployed in all those vulnerable hotspots, they know for ages, then this kind of an indefinite wait, this kind of a hardship, they believe could have been avoided, because not everyone would want to leave their home and come outside unless it's absolutely necessary. They never imagined this kind of a waterlogging could take place, and that's where I could see some kind of a failure. The second argument is, of course, the much hyped and promising 4,000 crore rupee stormwater drains. In the heavy rains last month, people in hotspots like Manipakam, they say they could find a great difference because there was no waterlogging even when there was 10 centimeters and above rains. But this time the system failed. Is it because the system could not handle this kind of a high quantum of rainfall, or is there something inherently defective about the system which the opposition politically rakes up? That's a larger question. Only a scientific investigation could reveal, but many point out
I think those are very important questions there, Sam. There are very important questions that you're raising. We're also joined this evening by a panel of guests, starting with noted pianist, a well-known face in Chennai, Anil Srinivasan. He joins us now. Gladys Dorairaj, who is from one of those worst affected areas of the city, Madipakam. I'm sure you've become an expert in dealing with water woes as far as the city is concerned, because that area gets flooded every time that's there. We also have Dr. Balaji Narasimhan of IIT Madras, who follows these issues very closely and perhaps try to understand what the problem is and how it can be solved. Is it the topography? Is it the geography? Or is it all man-made? Can there be a man-made solution for it? We'll put that across to Dr. Balaji Narasimhan and also Dr. Jayashree Venkateshan of the Centre Earth Trust. My first question to you, Gladys, Sam Daniel was just pointing out that your area has been one of those areas which is very close to the airport, constantly flooded. Several times you've faced it. What was perhaps the lesson this time? How would you assess what has happened around you? Have we learnt lessons from the past floods, or is it still work in progress? Gladys. Gladys, what was the lesson this time? What was the experience this time in your area?
I can't hear you properly.
Gladys, I was asking you, your area is one of the worst affected. Often every time there is rain, this is an extraordinary situation, but your area often gets affected. Has there been any change? What do you believe is the reason? Do you believe this will ever get solved, or is this going to be a perennial reality for you?
So there are several conditions to it, right? Like even before the rain, there was this stormwater drain project which was already started, and which was atrocious. Like I would say, the work which was handled as a whole in Guberan Street was not very professionally handled. And these are definitely not engineers who have been working on these projects, because we do understand there was one lane of stormwater drain which was already existing, and they duplicated another passage, and then they were making the whole pathway as a mess. And this was about like extended for almost 2 months. And talking about this, and as a women, like we are not ready to even walk out of the house after 8 o'clock, because it wasn't safe, because it was almost messed around, and also most of us were facing back pain, and most of our vehicles have been frequently treated for services.
Okay.
And this is even before the flood, and I think only 20% of the stormwater drain project was even in the process of work during the main season of where we are expecting rains, right? So I think, where are we even talking about, are we ready about this whole flood, right?
Right. That's an important question that you raised there. Anil Srinivasan, as a noted personality in Chennai, what's the sense that you pick of the city? I mean, you've seen this flood repeated again. Is it going to be just a reality that we need to deal with?
I believe so, Raghav. I think this is becoming more and more real every year. I mean, we went through the exact same thing in 2015. It's an eerie replay of the same set of events. And given that we're all discussing climate change, we're all discussing extreme weather events, which are frequently beginning to happen around this time of year, this is becoming more and more of a reality. I think everybody, including our Corporation Commissioner, has spoken about the the various topographical issues which are specific to Chennai. And it's only getting more and more accelerated as time goes on. And this is becoming an every year issue. It is a very, very real, very dangerous and very serious issue.
Right, and it's across the city, right, Dr. Balaji? Is there something topographically, because what authorities point out is that when the water gushes into one part of the city, it gets trapped into low-lying areas and it finds it very difficult to get back or drain out into the city. Is it just topography? Is there something that needs to have already been done? Does this stormwater project really, is that the solution? Where is it that we're lacking, or is it just something we'll have to learn to live with?
Thank you very much for having me on the show. And a very good evening to all of your panel. I think topography plays a very major role in draining the floodwaters. For example, if you look at South Chennai as well as North Chennai that are frequently getting affected because of the heavy rainfall and inundation. If you know the terrain of Chennai, the water typically flows from west towards the east. And then you have the Buckingham Canal that cuts across from all the way from north to south. And then you have a sand dune, a topographical divide. And then comes the ocean. So the water cannot naturally flow from west towards the east. So it is actually the Buckingham Canal that is actually serving as the major waterway that can drain all these interior portion. They are not connected to any major rivers. So before the city got developed, we need to all understand that over several centuries, the fishery town was, converted into a larger, city that we see here today. So they were all very fertile agricultural lands. It was a very large marshland, and then recently the Palikarnai marshland was also enlisted as a Ramsar site as well. So this entire area which drains, for example, South Chennai, which drains approximately about 250 square kilometer, there is only one outlet. That actually connects that to Buckingham Canal, and then that Buckingham Canal would have to then go into the ocean. So the water cannot go.
Let me just get Dr. Jayashree as well there quickly. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Professor Balaji. I just want to get Dr. Jayashree as well there into it. This Palikarnai marsh, which used to be like a sponge which would take in all the water at one point of time, has now become a concrete jungle. Now, is there any solution that we can have? Because the water levels are only increasing as each flood goes. Now, we may be getting used to floods, but the floods are getting used to us and getting worse as well. So, is there something that we can do systematically or no?
No, it's very difficult to give a yes or no answer to this situation, but there is definitely a possibility of finding a solution. It's not that all doors are closed. But to find that solution, the first thing that I would request for or ask for is that we need to keep an open mind and go back to the fundamentals. Somewhere along the line, my own take is the fundamentals have been totally messed up in our understanding. For example, what kind of system does the Palikarnai Marsh support? Balaji did speak about 250 square kilometers being the watershed of that area and water draining from west to east. The fact of the matter is the hydrology of the city is so connected, so messed up, so manipulated, whatever be the word. We have very little understanding of how the water is flowing. For example, Palikarnai Marsh, the question that you asked, is it possible to revive the sponge lake character? To do that, you'll have to work on 65 associated water bodies. And these span from a distance of 25 kilometers south to kilometers north. They are organized in the form of a semicircle around the marsh. If we are able to handle all the 65, there is a semblance of hope of bringing back some amount of quality or integrity of the Palikarnai Marsh. Otherwise, it's a futile exercise. There is no point in engaging ourselves in it.
Okay. When you make that point, I just want to have one provocative question to both you experts. When you say 4,000 crore stormwater drain project, etc., those are much hype. Really, the fundamentals need to be first addressed before you start building stormwater drains. Yes or no answer first from you, Professor Balaji.
So I think we need to have a comprehensive master drainage plan. So I think that's something that we have to work upon. Stormwater drainage will certainly help, but I think more bigger than that is we need to have a comprehensive master drainage plan that will exactly address what Dr. Jayashree is talking about in terms of understanding the larger hydrology and putting the stormwater drain in that perspective.
Okay, Dr. Jayashree?
We need to mimic nature. We need to follow nature. There's no point in coming up with a map or a plan that is human-centric. That's something that we've learned in Chennai many times over.
I'm going to give the last word to Anil, my friend. As a city, every city is struggling, but as a coastal city, the threat for Chennai is far, far more serious. Do you believe that citizens of Chennai actually really appreciate the seriousness of the future that we face, or is it just, okay, one flood at a time, we've passed on and we're just going to move on with it?
Oh, the citizens definitely understand it, Veer Raghav, because we experience the ill effects the most. As many have pointed out earlier, we were the ones left to fend for ourselves, literally. I think the citizens definitely understand the seriousness. As the professors were talking about it, I was just thinking we also seem to be working on multiple civic conflicting issues, because we also have a massive ongoing metro railway construction happening in many areas. Where normally some of these streets would not get inundated, got inundated this time. So I think if you are going to discuss drainage at one level and you're going to discuss metro water building also at the same time, I think we might be working at multiple conflicting civic priorities. And I think these are all the issues that need to be discussed.
Right. You need a holistic approach to it to save areas like the ones, especially the ones that Gladys lives, that Madipakam area, which has been consistently troubled. But of course, this time, every inch of that city's infrastructure was tested, the drainage systems tested. You need a holistic approach across in terms of physical infrastructure, but also how we approach it as a society and as a city per se. But that's all we have time for. The news continues here on NDTV. We'll keep a close track of all those infrastructure issues and urban issues in the city on the Southern View.